The following is a production of Natural Bliss Podcast for a better quality of life.
Hi, my name is Joyce Wheeler, and this is It's Your Life. Today is Wednesday, November 28th, 2018. Today I'm here with Heidi Feather. Heidi's passion for herbs was sparked at an early age. She was educated about the flora and fauna of southern New Hampshire by both of her grandmothers. Her quest for herbal knowledge led her to a working apprentice at Wise Way Herbals. There she was introduced to native peoples' indigenous wisdom of the herbs and their connection to the land through sacred ceremonies. She went on to earn a certification in therapeutic herbalism through Blazing Star Herbal School and also studied with renowned herbalist Susan Weed. Heidi feels it is her mission to help bring herbal knowledge into the world. She continues to be a student of the herbs. She says that the herbs have taught her many lessons and they have plenty more to share. The earth is populated by plants that can bring us into wellness. It is a wondrous gift from earth, yet with that gift comes responsibility, being responsible stewards. Heidi is here to teach and share. Herbs are not meant to be exploited for profit. They are here to be used on a personal and spiritual level from one being to another. Heidi is also quite accomplished in the arts, both creative and esoteric. She is a level 2 Reiki practitioner, intuitive tarot reader, artist, wool spinner, all-around fiber artist, and plant dyer of wool. Plus, she is also apt at sewing and is becoming well known for her tarot altar quilts, which she custom makes by hand. Today, Heidi and I will be discussing the history of herbs and also other aspects of herbs. So, Heidi, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's nice to have you here with all of your knowledge. So let's talk about the history of the herbs. What is an herb?
What is an herb? An herb the context has changed over the centuries, but today an herb is recognized as a plant that some part of is used, such as the roots, the stems, the leaves, flowers, fruits, or even as food, medicine, flavoring, or scent. So the herbs, that's what we consider an herb today.
And so how far back in history have herbs been used?
It seems like, in all probability, that humans have been using herbs since the beginning. There was evidence found in a Chandar cave, which I believe was in France, and the evidence was found in a Neanderthal that they found there. They were able to take dental samples from the teeth, and they recognized the herbs yarrow and chamomile, which to everyone should be quite familiar. Now, yarrow and chamomile would not have been used primarily as a food source. Yarrow is quite pungent and stringent, so it's not something you would want to eat just for, for food. So that is quite interesting. It's well known that animals will self-medicate themselves with herbs. Often many people have seen like their dogs going out to eat some grass or something that might resemble what we think is grass when they have a sour stomach and they need to upchuck, so to speak. In many different species, it has been well documented that they will seek out certain plants for healing.
That's real interesting because I'm kind of wondering about that because cats are really prone to eating grass.
Yes, they are.
I'm just wondering if that aids with their digestive system or even helps them to get those hairballs up.
I would think that it would help definitely with hairballs, especially longer hair cats are very prone to hairballs more, as well as short hair cats too, but long hair cats definitely.
But, and the reason I'm thinking about it, and I remembering times when my cats have put out a hairball, and I'm thinking, wow, I remember seeing bits of grass in there.
Yep.
So maybe kind of like a fibrous thing, aid with getting that out of there.
Yeah.
So as far as humans go, if we've been using herbs since the Neanderthals, what has happened? Why do you think we've gotten away from this?
What we call civilization. I mean, at one time, even Caucasian people lived very closely to the earth, and that was the people's medicine. It was something I think we all shared. We lived in the seasons, and we had a knowledge. Everybody had a knowledge of the earth. My grandmother's was something that was passed down to them to remember the plants because it was really important in rural living to know your plants because they could help supplement your diet and especially mushrooms and things like that. So I believe once at one time it was innate. We just knew either from observing the animals and what they ate, you know, that we just knew. We would know. No, I think it was lost knowledge. It's definitely lost knowledge. We have lost that connection with the planet, with the earth, with our ecosystems, and we have created our own, and that has led to the detriment of our health and the ecosystem.
Right, exactly. And it's something too because talking about the herbs and how long they have been used, and also the way our society thinks today. I'm going to bring religion into this a little bit because a lot of them think like it's witchcraft. And I think that goes back to the Salem witch burnings, where the witches, I mean, from what I've seen in documentaries I've seen, so it's hearsay, but is it possible because they were using herbs in a way that they maybe weren't used to seeing them, that these people were considered witches? And I know that it was a whole witch hunt type thing, and a lot of the witches, so-called witches that they were calling witches, had nothing to do with herbalism. But in some of the documentaries I've seen, they were herbalists. And I'm not wondering if maybe these people came from another country and integrated with these people, and because this was foreign to them, it was considered witchcraft.
It goes farther back than the witch trials. It goes back several centuries, where you have to look at the beginning of pharmaceutical or so-called medicine. You have to go back to what was called the burning times in Europe, and it
Mm-hmm.
happened out throughout Europe. Was people in the rural communities who used herbs for their as part of their daily lives were prosecuted and hung down and murdered, and they were told they were witches, and it was all a part of getting control so that people wouldn't have access to their own healing. And there was also mania involved in it too. Just really, they think in Salem there could have been an ergot fungus which caused hallucinations,
Mm-hmm.
so this made the people somewhat,
Disoriented.
yeah, crazy, so to speak. They weren't rooted in reality because of that. It got into the grain source, which is where it grows. So yeah, it actually goes way back to Europe. It really started in Europe. It just that frenzies would kind of carried over when the people founded the colonies here.
I can see that. I can see how they would have done it. The higher ups would have done that to gain control over the people by, saying that this is witchcraft. And it's something how it has stuck today. If you're into herbs and you're doing things with herbs, making tinctures or using them as a poultice, they see it as witchcraft because according to our society, we are supposed to go to a doctor and we are supposed to take a pharmaceutical drug. So let's talk about how much better using herbs for a better quality of life is versus using Western medicine. What's your take on that?
Well, this Susan Weeds talks about the 6 steps of healing, and 6 steps. Well, usually the first one is do nothing. Wait and see whatever condition it is if it will pass on its own. And then the second one is to gather information. I may not have these in order, but it's like to gather information. So get all the information you can on what's going on with you, and then accordingly. And then the third or fourth step would be, once you had the information, then you could take that to the next step of using herbal medicines. And then from there, if that doesn't solve the problem, then you go the last, basically there's more steps in between, but basically the last step would be using modern medicine. But you take into a lot of consideration, and you explore other avenues before you go to that resort. So there are uses in modern medicine. Definitely if you're in a car accident and you have broken bones, they're very good at putting you back together. That is something they're good at. And Dr. Andrew Well has several books on explaining, what modern medicine is good at and where they're very lacking. And my belief is they're really lacking at healing.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. It's a Band-Aid.
It's a placebo Band-Aid effect, and most of their so-called help causes more problems than what they're trying to, especially with the use of pharmaceuticals.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for just a second. What types of issues do people encounter when using pharmaceutical drugs versus using a herb?
The two main pharmaceuticals prescribed are antibiotic and painkillers. And what antibiotics do is they strip your intestinal flora. So they actually can make you sicker in the long run. You go in for a common cold and they will prescribe an antibiotic. And that's not going to really help you. The cold needs to run its course. And sometimes your body is just getting rid of stuff that is built up. And people try to treat that with antibiotics, and that's not helpful. The second one is painkillers. Painkillers help when you're in acute pain, but you kind of need to know that you're in pain so you don't do any more damage.
Mm-hmm.
So what it's really doing is covering up the symptoms, and then people become addicted.
Mm-hmm. And actually, and I think right now in our society, more people are addicted to pharmaceutical drugs than they are to street drugs.
This is true. This is fairly true. The opioid epidemic, and most of that is prescribed, and then people go looking for more, and then they get addicted. They're legally prescribed, and then they end up going for more. It has happened to people close to me.
Yeah, my daughter knows of numerous people that they're not addicted to street drugs. They're totally addicted to pharmaceutical drugs. I think maybe that's a ploy too. Let's get them all addicted.
Yep.
They make more money.
Exactly. That's the bottom line. And I do know something about the pharmaceutical industry because my father was a pharmacist.
I didn't know that.
So that it's been over 20 years he's passed, and it's been over 20 years since he's practiced. But it was really disturbing to him at the time, the way things were drastically changing. He often mentioned it.
Do you remember anything that he mentioned about how the pharmaceutical industry was changing?
But mainly the antibiotics and the doses that were the dosing.
So it was going higher.
It was definitely, it was tripling, and this was 20 years ago. So you can imagine now, because of the overuse, it's really a chronic overuse of antibiotics. It says,
definitely.
It has been found in our waterways, in our drinking water. It's given to animals.
So it's in the food.
So it's in the food. It's just what I like to say. Antibiotics were a blessing, but it's also become a curse because they have been so overused.
Well, yeah, and that goes back to what you were talking about the gut flora, also known as the gut microbiome. That's 80%. Yep. That's 80% of our immune system. There's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria, and not only is the antibiotic killing off the bad bacteria, but also the good bacteria too. Yeah. So as you said, by doing this, then we're more susceptible. Not only that, but one round of antibiotics, you're looking at 2 years to recover the gut microbiome.
Yep. Yep.
So let's talk about the herbs. So I don't know about you, but I don't know anybody who's addicted to herbs. Well, maybe the herbalists. Maybe there are people who are addicted to herbs, but
Well, if it's okay, we could touch on that a little bit
please.
because, I know what you mean, and we're talking about marijuana.
No,
And
no, actually, I was talking stinging nettles. What came in my head. I know a lot of herbalists who they have their infused stinging nettle that they drink throughout the day because of all the nutrients and vitamins and minerals that it contains. So that's what I was thinking about.
I thought we were talking about marijuana.
No, but we can talk about marijuana. I
Well,
personally see nothing wrong with marijuana.
in its natural state, and that's what my point was that natural, unaltered marijuana is a very healing plant, and it can be used for, many, many problems, eyesight, cancer treatment, recovery. It's really a wonderful herb, but unfortunately, it has been hybridized, standardized, and just totally messed up so that the marijuana that out there today does not resemble the wild native plant of, I believe it's high mountains of the Himalayas where it originated, and it's some of it's quite so high, pardon the pun, in THC that it doesn't even resemble the plant that it was originally, which is, I think, is tragic.
Yeah,
It's
it is. But
it's just like the overuse, like with the antibiotics. It's doing more harm than the gift that was another a very well gift from Mother Earth or Gaia, that has been exploited and overused and not used in the right purposes.
so, if we're talking about marijuana? Then I'd kind of like to discuss tobacco because a lot of the tobacco industry, the cigarettes contain arsenic. They also contain what is that they fiberglass. A lot of these additives and preservatives that they're putting into them are not good for you. Now, the indigenous people used tobacco. Can you speak on that?
Yes, as much that's the same thing. It's been hybridized, and the chemical composition has been changed so that the native tobacco does not resemble the tobacco that's grown today at all. Well, it would resemble it, but I mean, the chemical makeup would be totally different. Totally different. They increase the nicotine to make it more addictive. Not a, and then like all the additives that they put into it. Somebody said once it's the equivalent of smoking toilet bowl cleaner. It's
Ew.
really toxic. I heard that quote from somewhere where I can't remember. But yeah, it was a very sacred to the Native Americans in North and South America. It's was an indigenous plant to this continent, and that's another example of misuse, overuse, and changing the plant into something for profit. For
Right.
profit. It's all about, when it really comes down to it, it's all about profit.
Do you have any idea what the indigenous people used tobacco for?
It's as an offering, as a
Okay.
sacred offering to the spirits. When they harvested a plant, they would leave a little tobacco behind as a gift to that plant, and of course they would not overharvest that plant. So, and that goes into, could also speak about the indigenous population of sage is at high risk
Yes.
because everybody is burning sage now around the world. So the indigenous California sage plant is endangered
Right.
because I believe some of it is grown, but also the wild stuff is being harvested for profit because people can make money off of it. So that is in danger of becoming extinct. It behoove people to look in their own backyards for the similar plants or other plants that are overpopulated that could benefit in the same way.
That's the thing too. We're just so ignorant as to what's in our backyard.
Yep.
And when I started studying herbs, I never looked at plants the same again. It was always like, what is that for? What is that? And, now I look at people and treating their lawn for weeds. And, that's another source of antibiotic that we're exposed to is in Roundup that a lot of people use for killing their weeds. The glyphosate, the main ingredient Roundup, is actually a patented antibiotic, and it's known for getting rid of the good bacteria that's in the gut. So that's another exposure that we have to deal with. Maybe you not so much so because you're more in a rural environment. Do you see that in your area?
Well, unfortunately, the modern farming practices
Mm-hmm.
in my immediate area, I don't see that news. But I, unfortunately, in the farming practices, I live in farmland, and they have been, I don't know if they still are, but some of the crops they grow are genetically modified.
Mm-hmm.
There's a grass that they grow that is genetically modified, and it can kill animals unless it is fully mature if they eat it. I was really disturbed to find that was being grown in my valley.
Yeah, it is disturbing.
It's very disturbing because it just doesn't make sense. Why would you want to use a product like that?
Well,
Like,
because it's all about making money.
yeah,
And if we're sick, then the pharmaceutical industry makes more money, the doctors make more money, the insurance companies make more money, and
yep,
I think that's why it's important that people learn about herbs. And for me and my family, it's not just okay, what do we use because we have this problem? It's let's look at preventing it. So, like, I make elderberry elixir, which is great for the immune system. And that's another thing that I see a lot of is people using elderberry elixir or elderberry syrup when they're getting sick. We take it every day. Not a lot, just enough, just a little bit every day. Okay, so Heidi, let's just go back to what we were talking about with the white sage, which is being over harvested and it now is on the endangered plant list.
yes. And I want to bring up a few other plants. Anything that has wood or is wood based. Think of a tree. Think of how long it takes to grow a tree. So I want to add that too, that anything like sandalwood, cedar, anything as wood, think about that. Unless you're harvesting from your own personal source, anything like that can be over harvested very quickly. And one of the big ones that's really in favor right now is Palo Santo,
Mm-hmm.
and that is from wood. And I have heard conflicting reports about that, and people burn that like sage.
Right.
That
What have you heard about the Palo Santo? I'm curious because my research had showed that the tree has to be dead for them to get that wood. So
Well, this is what the research I have found too. And it says, well, that they have all these regulations in the place and they can't cut down the trees. And then I found other information where that doesn't happen and they are cutting the trees down. So they're not collecting the dead wood. They're purposely cutting the trees down to let it age, because that's what it really has to do, is it has to age
mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
to bring up the essential oils, I believe, in the plant. So many other plants that are on the endangered list. But what in eastern United States, mugwort is an invasive. It can be used very much like sage. In fact, some have turned it eastern sage, and
Hmm.
it may well be what the eastern natives used as a purification, as a cleansing, like people use regular sage today. So that's mugwort, which is Artemisia vulgaris. I love the plant, and it grows on our roadsides all over the place. I don't think it's something that grows in the deep south. That's something you would know, but I do know most of eastern United States is quite prevalent and overabundant in a lot of areas. So it's easy to harvest without much difficulty, because you don't want to get it right on the roadside. You
Right.
want to back up, several feet, because you don't want to get the toxicity from all the Susan Weed recommends 8 feet back. I recommend, even if it's 8 feet down, if it's down in a gully, all that water's going to drain off. So you may not, you want to harvest on an upslope.
So where does mugwort grow? Where is it found?
It's found all over the east in the United States, and it grows a lot along the roadways.
Okay, you were mentioning going up a slope, so it grows near water?
It grows. It for some reason it loves the roadside, so it probably loves the eastern United States. We use salt, so it probably likes the salt, acidic. I would assume soil, a salty soil, because along the roadways would be salty.
That
But,
makes sense.
so it likes a general environment. It likes bright sunlight, and it likes acidic soil, I would say. And it grows several feet tall. It's really quite a remarkable plant in many
So
ways.
is it on the endangered list?
No, it's on the invasive list.
Ah, okay.
There's an invasive list, and a lot of the invasive species are very medical.
Right. Now, is that a weed?
Yeah, well, yes. Well,
Like plantain. Plantain's a weed, so I was just wondering if mugwort was also a
well,
weed.
that's a discussion too. What is a weed and what is an herb?
Ah, but
So
weeds are herbs.
weeds are herbs. That's a weed is just, well, somebody said a weed is just in the wrong place. So in other words, like, it's just not where you want it to be. You know,
Well, most people.
most people, like, yes, like I transplant St. John's wort into my garden. So
I mean, I think you and I are pretty much like just looking at our lawn and seeing a weed and going, oh, what is that? How can I use that? I know I do when I see things growing in my yard, but the downside with where I live is that they spray for the mosquitoes because
uh, yeah.
here in Louisiana, where we're located, there's swamps and water, and the mosquitoes get bad. So we have a truck that comes by and sprays. And then I recently found out that there's an airplane that goes over that also sprays.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it's just like, and I do have comfrey growing, but I hesitate to use it because of that. Not only that, but the chemtrails. And lately, the chemtrails here have been really heavy. So I hesitate to take that and use that. I don't know. All right, so at one point you had mentioned when we were talking about, I think it was the Palo Santo, about the oils in the wood having to mature. So from that aspect, let's talk about the essential oils.
A lot of people have the misconception that essential oils are herbs, and a lot of essential oils are made from herbs. But essentially, what an essential oil is a chemical component. It's the aromatic component of a herb. So it is not the whole herb. And it's made through a distillation process. And the thing with making oils is it takes copious amounts of plant material to make a drop of essential oil. To make rose essential oil, it takes from 30 up to 60, depending on the content in the rose, to make one drop of.
That's a lot of roses.
That's a lot of roses. So you got to think about all this growth. All these plants have to be grown and processed. Then you have the other plants, your aromatic lavender. All these have to be grown. All the lemon balm is one that takes a copious amount of plant material also. In fact, if somebody's really interested, they can look into a book, Essential Oil Maker's Handbook, Extracting, Distilling, and Enjoying Plant Essences. And that is the author. It's translated, let's put it that way, because I don't want to mess up the names, but it's translated, it was written in German, and it was translated by Paul Lemon into English. But that goes into detail about how much plant product that you need to make essential oils. But it takes more than you would ever use in cooking to make an essential oil. There's an essential oil of oregano, which is highly, the most. And again, we talked about profit before. there's a lot of multi-level companies out there that are really pushing the essential oils and pushing people to take them internally. And this is a big problem because, number one, like I said, essential oils are not herbs. They are a chemical component of an herb, just like the herb foxglove that they make digitalis out of, which has now been synthesized. But digitalis is a heart medication. Just like with essential oils, you do not want to take them internally. Unless you are qualified and you know what you are doing. Should never be
Or
taking
you're
them.
or you're going to somebody who's qualified and telling you, and that doesn't mean somebody from a multi-level marketing person is qualified to tell you you can adjust them, because they are just being a parrot for their company and telling you.
Exactly.
I just want to share that I was listening to David Crow, and he's a holistic practitioner. He's in Ayurveda and essential oils. And he has said that he has seen many of his patients come in who have ingested essential oils. Their esophagus is tore up, and the mucous membrane in their stomach is also tore up.
That would not surprise me in the least because they're a chemical component.
Right.
And once you start breaking apart the chemical components of an herb, you are making a pharmaceutical. And this, to me, is very dangerous for herbalism. What I wanted to touch on was in other countries, Germany and Europe and many countries, you cannot have herbs unless you have a prescription. And that could well happen here with all it takes is one person getting sick for the FDI to freak out and say, when it's an herb, that it's the herb that we gotta regulate this. That's all it's gonna take. In Germany, you're not even supposed to make preparations at home, in your own home, from your own plant.
That's ridiculous.
And we, as herbalists, do not want to see this happen. And this is one of the problems with these multi-level marketing companies. That their goal is profit. It's not health. It's profit. It's not wellness. It's profit.
Right.
And this is a dangerous roulette game that's going to come back, and it will probably land on the herbal community because they are associated with herbs. And they are not herbs. They are made from herbs, but they are not herbs. Just like some of the over-counter herbs that they sell now. I have heard stories that some of them don't even contain what they say they contain. I'm talking about, the big corporations that process these herbs, and then they're not processed in the right manner. Herbs, there have been protocols for years and years, for millennia, to use the right part of the herb at the right time. The right time. Roots need to be harvested in the spring is the optimal time before they start to bud out, before they start to come up, or in the late fall. Flowers are obviously meant to be when they're in flower. Leaves sometimes before the plant flowers or after the plant flowers. So it all depends. You need to know this. And these big corporations, they don't care. The bottom line is profit. So they're going to go out and harvest anytime they feel like it. And you're not going to get the optimal result that you would get if it has been done correctly. There's plenty of small, one-stop, one-shop people that were, and qualified herbalists that sell herbal products at reasonable prices that you can be assured that have been teaching. Not only are they selling their herbal preparations, but they've been teaching herbalism for years. So you're going to get quality products from them.
And I think that's the thing that people need to realize too, is that when it comes to herbal products or anything that's natural, that's from the earth, you don't want to go to Walgreens or CVS or Walmart. I was just talking to somebody else the other day, goes to Walmart to get her essential oils. And I didn't say anything, but I was like, okay, if that's what you want to do. But like Heidi said, you want to find an herbalist. We are blessed to have an herbalist in a nearby town who works at a health store. So, he's my go-to guy. So, that's what you want to do. Go to like a regular health store, not Walgreens, not Walmart. That's not a health store. Find a health store that actually has knowledgeable people working there who know about the products that they're selling and about the ingredients that are in them.
That can be very helpful, but there's plenty of herbalists out there that will be more than willing to put you in the right direction.
Right.
Most of us paid for our schooling. We went to knowledgeable people to gain our certificates. So look for somebody that has actually done the work and continues to educate themselves.
And I think when it comes to herbs, I think that's a totally ongoing process.
Yeah, you never stop learning. Once you become an herbalist, there's so many plants out there that you can't really stop learning. It's a continual learning. There's new discoveries every day, where science has backed up that herbs work.
Hmm.
But in the tradition that have been educated in, we use the whole herb. We do not break apart its constituent. When we make a tincture, we use the whole herb or the part of the herb that we're supposed to use, and we harvest at the right time. Or we know of the companies to get the plant material that are reputable and have been around
Right.
for years, and they have good quality, organic and ethically wild harvested,
Right.
because the wild harvesting can be an issue. It
Mm.
depends on the person. Is it a place for profit, or is it a person that's making medicine for healing and to help people?
Well, like you were talking about where to harvest the herbs and plants and how far away from a road you would want to be. If somebody were just doing this to for financial gain, they wouldn't care where they were taking
Oh
the
no,
the
no.
herbs from. They would take them from the roadside, so you're not getting a good quality. So you're right about that. And I often see that I'll see wild harvest, and I don't mind if the herbs I purchase are wild harvest. But it just does go through my head, is the person harvesting these doing, like you said, harvesting them in a correct manner? Or are they just not caring because they just see dollar signs?
Right. And it's a big difference, because ethical wild harvesting is perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as, if it's really about profit and paying attention to the plant spirit,
Mm-hmm.
everything is energy. We are all energy.
Right.
And plants have an energy also. And that's what the shamans of all their indigenous traditions knew. And that's how they worked with them. And there is a good book called Plant Spirit Medicine that goes into detail about that, by Elliot Cohen. He's kind of have brought plant spirit medicine into the modern world for us herbalists. That's what I learned from the indigenous people that I spent time with. That you honor those medicine, you honor the plant
Mm,
spirit, so it will continue to grow.
exactly.
I've heard horror stories in this day and age, of indigenous people going out to harvest where they've been harvesting for years, for old root systems that have been there for years, and going to find them totally wiped out
Mm-mm-mm.
because someone working for a profit, whether it was multi-level or corporate or whatever, for profit, harvested everything, and the whole root system was gone,
Well,
left nothing.
that's just like they did with the buffalo too.
Yeah.
For profit, just slaughtered them all, took their hides, and just left everything else there.
It's American ginseng is in high demand.
That isn't that also on the endangered species list?
I believe it is, yes.
Yeah, I think so. I
Yes,
actually watched a documentary about that where people were going in, they were going out into the woods and harvesting
yeah.
it.
And that's what they do. They take it all. They don't leave any behind. That's unethical wild harvesting.
Yeah, totally.
We spoke earlier about the tobacco and leaving tobacco. Even herbalists I know will leave something behind, whether it's tobacco, a piece of their hair, something as a gift to the plant spirit. It's a connection. It's a being to being connection that we
Right.
can cultivate anywhere, even in the cities. It doesn't matter where you live. It still can be cultivated. There are vacant lot where there's a book called A City Herbal that goes into how you can find herbs in the middle of the city. They will grow anywhere. They're tenacious.
Hmm.
They don't give up, a lot of them.
Right. It's just a matter of gaining knowledge instead of just looking at something and going, oh, it's a weed and, it's making my grass look ugly, so let's get rid of it. Growing up in Chicago, we had a lot of dandelions, And
Yep.
it was always get rid of the dandelions, get rid of them. We don't want this on our grass. And
Yeah.
I remember as a kid taking a bucket of water and putting dandelions in it and rocks. So I guess maybe this was something that was in me that I knew as a child and didn't discover until later on.
Right.
But now here in Louisiana, I can't even find dandelions.
They grow everywhere here for
Not
me.
here.
They always have.
I was told that to look like in open fields, like in January or February, one of those 2 months. Of course,
Right, 'cause
our temperatures are different. So
right, you don't have much of a winter. They say they grow everywhere, and they're one of our most valuable medicines and wellness herbs. It makes me sick to see those Roundup commercials in the spring. I literally feel sick to my, it's sickening for profit, perfection, whatever the stupid thing is that humans are tricked into doing. They're
right,
following.
and they don't go out. Our society is so prone to listening to what the media has to tell them and what doctors have to tell them, what politicians have to tell them, that they don't go and research anything on their own. They don't look into anything. And some of them who do, they don't look outside of the spectrum as far as looking at government websites or college websites like Harvard, whatnot. They just look within that realm to the places where they have been taught are accredited, which not necessarily are accredited.
Right, right.
So Heidi, if people want to get in touch with you, they interact with you, where can they go?
They can find me. I have a YouTube channel. They can find it's called Wild Feather. That is WILDFEATHA. They can find me on Facebook, and that's Heidi Wild Feather, spelled out properly. I have a blog spot that is the Wild Feather, WILDFEATHA, that has a lot of my information on that, theblogspot.com. I'm not on Facebook that often, so I may not get back to you right away. Facebook and me do not get along. I'm also on Instagram occasionally, and that is Wild Feather, also WILDFEATHA. And I should have a Patreon page coming up soon.
And what is Patreon?
Patreon is where you support artists or whatever, different types of mediums, with donations from $1 to $25 to $50 a month, so that you get content from them. So I will be going into doing podcasts on herbalism. We'll start with the very basic, and that will be available at some point in the future on my Patreon, which is Wild's Color Cauldron.
Is there anything else that you want to leave our audience with?
Just start looking around you. What's growing? See if you can identify it. Take time to really notice what is growing in your environment. And come to my Patreon. We will let you know when that is up. On my YouTube page, I do videos, and I will let you know when that is up and running. And I also have a video that is a meditation look through my playlist, that is an herbal to find your herbal ally. It's a meditation to find your herbal ally. So I have a few things on herbs and herbal dyeing also on my video channel. So I want to leave you with that, and many blessings.
Thank you, Heidi, for joining us today. You've been listening to It's Your Life. I've been your host, Joyce Wheeler. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.
This has been a production of Natural Bliss Podcast for a better quality of life.